Heyo everyone and welcome. I'm your friend Art of Mana, and hello especially to the immortal John Hancock, as this is a response to your video which you called Retro Video Game Market is Changing, Not Crashing, and I've linked that in the description for any of you who've not seen it yet. Start there. It's a great video, and John, I love your commentary on video games and gaming history, and I really agree with you that the retro video game market is changing but not crashing. And I felt like maybe I had a few things I could offer and add to this conversation. I think the key to understanding the current trends in video game collecting is nostalgia. I think video games are still a relatively new art form, and it hasn't been that many years since those who played the first games as kids had disposable income and access to collect the games they grew up with or that they missed out on. For me, I've only been collecting for about a decade now, and now that some time has passed since that initial big boom, collectors seem to have met this sort of fork in the road. I think there are many motivations to collect. And on one side of the fork, there are those who look at collecting as a financial investment. And for these collectors, any downward trend in value of old games brought on by any sort of circumstances may be enough to scare them off or even have them part with their collection now. And then on the other side of the fork, there are those who are motivated really and primarily by nostalgia. So that's where I come in and where I fit into the puzzle. And I think for those who collect for nostalgia's sake, there's this other fork in the road, and I've fallen in this side of the fork. So the side where where there are those like me who crave the original experience with all of its trappings, and this could lead to a game room designed with 80s and 90s home decor, maybe even having an original arcade cabinet or two in it. But at the very least, at the very minimum, it would have original consoles hooked up to a CRT television. I think some are going to seek out the best connections to those CRT televisions, as we've seen. Many are going to pursue PVMs or find ways to upscale their games to a modern display. But, for me, I actually, this is a bit of an aside, but I actually appreciate just playing through about the max of S-Video on an old, simple standard CRT because, any blurriness in the image, to me, is tied up with the look of the era and is more period correct. So I guess you could say I'm looking for the most authentic or original experience that I can have. And then on the other side, there are those who really simply just want to experience the games again. And, this could be in a remastered form or not. It's not really so much the original experience that's as important as just experiencing the game. And again, this could be remastered, it could be a re-release, it could be virtual console, a mini console, an arcade one-up cabinet, emulation of dubious legality, or even just watching the game being played on Twitch or YouTube, as you already mentioned. I think there isn't as much the interest in playing these games again and again as much as remembering a time that was and then being able to move on. It's a quick dose of nostalgia. But regarding Twitch, unfortunately, I think you do see a lot of emulation that's usually not legal emulation, or you see issues with output where the games don't look quite right. And it's probably just part of the downfall of broadcasting these SD signals on an HD distribution platform. But like I already said, of course, for those who aren't as concerned about reliving the exact experience, this can still be great fun, and it can provide the dose of desired nostalgia. But there are other further considerations, and this is where some of my experience with Twitch comes into play. I think it seems to me that a lot of people on the platform right now are streamers already, streamers themselves, and they're watching other streamers, and it's become so easy to stream that so many people are doing it. And of course, Twitch has to find ways to organize its streamers, and so popular games and popular channels are most often at the top. And so since so many people are streaming, fewer are taking risks with less popular games unless they know that they have an established audience regardless of what they play. The top most streamed games on Twitch are usually long-standing games that have an esports quality. Think League of Legends. Or they're new games that a lot of people are interested in. Think right now of Smash Brothers. And top streamers in the first category often are top tier players, and top streamers in the second category usually have some charisma or a particularly unique take on how they're streaming the game. So talent is important in newer titles, but I think a winning personality is more important. And then for older games, everything is further fragmented. I think this comes down to the fact that Twitch showcases categories based on the number of viewers, so randomly playing an older or an obscure game is harder to do and still remain visible. So you probably already know you stay away from the very topmost streamed games because you could get lost in the sea of streamers, but you also don't want to risk an unknown game. You have to find that middle ground. For this reason, I think YouTube is still the better way to go to look for obscure hidden gems. Shows like yours and other retro review channels do this best. And on Twitch, I've often wanted to showcase more obscure games, but found that fewer people would show up when I'm streaming than when I was streaming more popular titles, which does make sense because some people really, watch for the game, while I would say I watch more for the streamer and the streamer's interests and personality, and a lot of people do, but there are those who really are connected to the game. The only caveat to all this would be that more popular games associated with speedrunning or games that are streamed under the retro category can still be visible. So these are two examples where older games can get some limelight. The retro category has kind of become this catch-all for anything that isn't current, despite Twitch being really clear that games should be streamed with the correct category when available. And also many older games do have a category ready to use, but streaming all these slightly older titles in retro is a way people figured out to make sure that their stream doesn't get lost at the bottom of a long list of categories. It's almost like a subsection of Twitch itself. And in this subsection, there is a whole lot of variety. Some people are really good players, and so they're top tier at what they do, at their speed runs or whatnot. And some people are just really wonderful winning personalities. But you can also see a lot of creative things, like people playing with unusual controllers or marathoning a series of games. And all of this is based just really on my experience and observations. So I'm open to your input or your critiques, or any of you who want to chat in the comment section. But I think Twitch is interesting, and I think it does have an impact on gaming. But I think it's more attractive to people who really want to experience a dose of nostalgia and aren't picky about original hardware unless they want to stream from it themselves. So I doubt that Twitch is really impacting the market in a considerable way, any more than YouTube has in the past. I think Twitch is somewhat analogous to watching your friend play a game on their system at their house when we were younger, right? That alone could be satisfying. Sometimes you'd want to go and pick up that game if you could, or you put it on a wish list, but so many times it was something that you enjoyed, and then at the end of the day, you went home satisfied. So I think that players who are looking for that quick dose of nostalgia are getting it through Twitch. So I think the market is changing. I wouldn't be surprised if prices trend downward for a little while, but I certainly wouldn't say the market is crashing. There are just more options for people who don't really want to collect the most authentic experience. There is this abundance of legal and acceptable options. Those who only picked up retro games for that quick dose of nostalgia have options better suited to them. And those who want authentic original experiences will continue to seek out games. And those who are treating collecting as a financial investment will probably continue, but I wouldn't be surprised if many start to opt out or continue to opt out as they might be now. On top of this, many acquire games too quickly and without the desire to play their collection, and I've heard so many stories of people who amass this large collection just like this, only to sell it all off in a hurry. Honestly, this all seems like it's really good news to me. I hope this is true because I'd love to see prices go down for certain games, and I'd rather play some of my favorites on original hardware, but it's really hard to justify a 3 or 4-digit price tag when I can pick up a $5 download or a $50 collection or a $75 mini console. And since video games are art, I think they should be accessible to the general public. And in the absence of public domain games or a really big Netflix of video games or a comprehensive virtual console, inexpensive secondhand games is something I can really get behind. Anyway, I hope this has contributed somewhat to this conversation. I really did enjoy your video. I love hearing your thoughts on this. And John, thank you so much for what you do with your Cowlitz Retro Video Game Convention. It's great stuff. It brings a lot of people from this hobby together, and of course it's for a great cause. And I also really admire you for putting together this museum because I think it's a wonderful way to preserve video game history, because it's not just the games at the end of the day. For me, like I've said, I really care about this authentic experience, and I think that's so important. So keep up the great work, John. And yeah, this was fun. It's my first sort of response video on YouTube. So I don't know how this works. I hope you didn't mind it. And do good and be well. I'll catch you in the future. Bye bye.